Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Joe and Joe Weather Show on this Sunday morning. Joe Rayo and me, Joe Cioffi. Joe is clad in his most fabulous flannel, and I am in my orange sweatshirt, oversized sweatshirt. For orange is a very soothing color; it's a very healing color. So I'm wearing it for religious purposes, in order to pray that the forecast comes out as advertised.
I got to tell you, Joe, this once or twice a decade, you get a memorable storm, and this looks like one of those memorable storms. I'm trying to think back, you know, to the blizzard of '96, the President's Day storm of 2003, of course, the Snowmageddon 2016 storm where New York City got 27 and a half inches, and
Hmm.
there are a handful of others. And this one looks like it's going to be pretty much in the same category. It feels a little bit to me like that post-Christmas storm of 2010, because we were anticipating that storm to move in late on Sunday and Sunday night, and here we are on Sunday and waiting for this storm to move in. And I had to bump up my numbers. I sent you my map early this morning.
And I bumped up mine,
It,
so
uh,
we're
it,
both on the same page with
I
that.
mean, we're seeing the NAM last night and even the NAM today, and seeing like vertical velocities of plus 31 and liquid equivalent amounts, QPF amounts in 6 hours of anywhere from 4 to 7 tenths. And the big question, I think, for New York and especially Long Island is whether or not any kind of sleet or rain is going to mix in to try kind of keep the accumulations down a bit. But
Is it
even if that
really going to
happens,
make a difference?
even
Honestly, even
yeah, I
if it
say even if that
does,
happens, the damage will have already have been done in most
right?
cases.
And
And
there's still, I kind of, I did just a quick run of my what I call the half double rule when you're dealing with upper lows, where you're winding up with backside snows. And for LaGuardia, which basically says, you take the advection snow moisture and cut it in half. You take the advection snow and double it. I'm sorry, the backside snow, and you double it. And you come up with a number. And for LaGuardia, I'm going to be curious to see if this works. But LaGuardia came up to 15.
right.
So, in other words, the GFS, if you take all the melted, would be 20 plus at LaGuardia. But doing it with my way, you come out with 15. So let's remember that for tomorrow and see if the half double rule works. Because sometimes it does tend to work in upper situations like this, which we have a two-part event, and not when you have a one-part event. Um, but I think the most frustrating, honestly, I think the most frustrating for me is through all of this. I don't ever remember seeing models. Uh, I mean, they're going to be different in terms of how they lay out their big snows, and I get that, but I don't think I've seen so much more model confusion in terms of where the max area is going to be and the shifting back and forth from whether it's going to be in the coast and in southern New England, or is it going to be in northern New Jersey, or is it going to be in eastern Pennsylvania around Allentown, where a number of the globals over the last couple of days have been putting some ridiculous double-digit amounts. So that's to me has been one of the more frustrating elements of this.
And I think the key to when the worst or when the heaviest or when the most severe part of the storm will be hitting us is by tracking the area of omega on the FGen models, on the FGen charts. And the models, each one have their own. I mean, you look at it on the NAM, and the contour lines are so thickly packed together, it just looks like one broad blob of purple or
Oh yeah, it's nuts.
lavender coming through. But it seems like uh, even on the I'm looking at the GFS now, the new 12Z run. It has it's literally enveloped in all of it at 18Z or 1 o'clock tomorrow, and then it pretty much lifts it up and away to the northeast. The same holds true with the NAM. So what I've been telling people is the worst part of this is probably going to be in the midday through the afternoon, and will be pretty much the worst will be behind us by nightfall tomorrow night. But in spite of that, as you point out, on the backside, we may still have another 12 or 18 hours of intermittent or periods of on and off snow, which may add on to what we have already received from the daytime hours of Monday. So it looks like I haven't not seen your map. You've already seen mine, but
Right.
I put like 12 to 18 inches.
Well, I'm going to post.
In
I'll to Joe. I'm going to. I got the maps ready to go. So let's bring them up for everybody to see. Just really quick. Let want to.
well, before you do any of
Go
that,
ahead.
you want to do our commercial first
Yeah, of
for
course.
our
No.
our
I was just
sponsor?
about to. I was just about to switch over to do that, and also a couple of acknowledgments that I want to do before we get started. So, of course, this is definitely what you've been waiting for is a reason to go to Omni True Value Hardware, sponsor of the Joe and Joe Weather Show, and also Weather in 5. Uh, Omni is at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon. 6317561125 is their telephone number. The website omnitruevalue.com. And whether you are whether you have a crew that has to do winter storm cleanups or whether you're an individual that just wants to get your house in order, Omni-True Value Hardware has everything you need when it comes to cleanup after winter storms, including all the best snow melt product and ice melt products, including Petalo, which is considered one of the best out there. So get out to Omni-True Value Hardware. They service the entire tri-state area, and they are a local business, and no better time than now to support a local business. Okay, so a couple of acknowledgments. First off, I want to welcome everybody that is here from watching from the Facebook page Tri-State Weather, uh, uh, Adam Toxin's page, and we love having you on board for the Joe and Joe Weather Show. If you want to take part in the conversation, just use your Gmail account to subscribe to my YouTube account, and you can get on the chat board, which we are monitoring. Also, an early super chat hit, Mr. Rayo, and that comes from, as soon as I can get my mouse to behave itself, that comes from Joe. I'm sorry, it's Joe Abia. I'm thinking this might be somebody I know, which is fine. I just wonder if I'm seeing that wrong. But however, thank you so much, Joe, for hitting super chat. Most generous, and we really do appreciate it. We already have 82 likes on the board. Joe and I love it when it goes over 100. So if you can oblige, that would be great. And do it if you like the show, okay? Not because I'm saying so. And 417 folks are here, so I know they want to chomp on a bit of weather. I just wanted Joe Rayo. I got you and I are peppered with questions all the time when the weather gets like this, and I'm sure you've had your fair share of questions. Am I right?
You are absolutely right. In fact, one person on my Facebook page made the comment, "We must be," because I as I said, I upped my accumulations across the board this morning, and somebody made a comment on my Facebook page saying it must be that it's going to happen. Even Rayo is saying this now, and of course that is the notation that I'm usually the last one to go for a big massive snowfall, but all of a sudden now I've jumped into the fray, so to speak, and so now people are saying, well, if Rayo's going for it, then it must be that it's going to happen. So there you go.
Yes, exactly. And now I have to say, Joe, I have gotten, my usual slew of questions, comments, criticisms, et cetera, et cetera. Of course, we ignore the criticisms because almost all of them were completely not valid. Um, but the this one has to be the best that I have gotten in a long, long time. Okay, and and you may need to help me out with this. Okay, Christopher J. Garrity, I this was the best question ever, and I love you for it. Okay, and the question, Joe, is this: who do I like in the seventh at Aqueduct today? And it came at a time when I was so wrapped up in everything going on and going on through all the models. I let out an absolute big laugh out of it, and thank you for that because I needed it. I honestly needed to get a big laugh. So I tell you what, why don't we start with the models because that's what I think everybody's dying to see. Oh no, actually, let's start with our snowfall forecast maps.
Okay.
I think that we'll start with yours, and it's coming up. By the way, I'm going to make sure you got this. You're going to turn your share button turned on in case you want to share some maps on your side of the screen. Just
Yeah.
let me know. So we'll do that. So we'll start with the Joe Rayo snowfall forecast. And yeah, you bumped your numbers up all right.
In a way they're bumped up, and in another way they're not really bumped up. Like, for example, here in where I live in Putnam Valley, I said yesterday, last evening, 6 to 10. I also put an asterisk saying there could be a bit more on top of that because the map only went till 7 a.m. on Tuesday. This map goes till 7 p.m. on Tuesday, and I'm saying 12 to 18, but in my discussion, I said the bottom end of each range is a lock. In other words, I'm thinking 12 inches for where I live. I said
Right.
6 to 10 yesterday. So if I got to the top end of yesterday's range at 10, and this ultimately ends up being like 12 or 13, is that really such a tremendous bump up? No. But as I explained in my discussion, the reason why I have 12 to 18, a 6 inch range there, is, and I think you'll agree, we really don't know where the areas of heavy snow banding with a system like this is going to set up, nor do we know where the convection, the possible convection, the thunder snow. And yes, I do believe we're going to be hearing reports of people with flashes of lightning and rumbles of thunder, these bursts, these sudden bursts of precipitation. And so because of that uncertainty, you need to widen the range. So 12 is a lock, and 18 now it looks like would be the worst case scenario. But for the higher terrain areas of northwestern and western New Jersey, where often, and even a teeny little part of Orange County too, where sometimes they're coming up with higher amounts more than anybody. I said, all right, maybe 20. So I put that just for the sake of for the heck of it. And so you get the idea. And places to the east of the Hudson Valley, New York City, and across Long Island. And I saw this both on the NAMFOOS, which brought the T1 boundary layer temperature up to 0 now, Joe, indicating a slow warning in the afternoon and evening tomorrow, and also the plumes, indicating that the temperatures could reach or even exceed 32 for several hours across Long Island, which may change the precip from snow over to sleet or even plain rain for places along the south shore of Long Island and across the Twin Forks or the South Fork. That's why the amounts are lower out there.
Right.
So, but just one glance at this demonstrates to you that this is one of those once or twice a decade storms with these tremendous numbers and this widespread area of moderate to heavy snow across the tri-state area.
We are getting a lot of people on the chat board asking for their specific areas. I'm just going to let you know, I'm seeing it, and I'll try to do my best to give
But
a master of the broad sense. But we
the
don't, Joe
funniest,
and I don't zip code forecast, just so
the
you
funny,
know.
no, but the funniest one I got on Facebook this morning was from somebody who said, "Hey Joe, what am I going to get here in Hawthorne? 12 to 18 or 6 to 12?" And that line, that boundary line that literally splits Westchester down the middle from north to south, right over Hawthorne. And so he's asking which is going to be better for him. I'll simply say that if in Hawthorne you see a little bit of sleet or rain mixing in, you might be held down to like 12 or 13. If you don't, you stay all snow and you get one of those heavier snow bands, watch out. It could be in excess of 12 inches. That's more than enough for anybody, though.
Yeah. All right. So this was mine, and my geography goes a little bit further. I unfortunately I made a mistake while I was doing this, and I had to cut off the part because I would normally would take this all the way out to Boston. But if you just kind of use your imagination here, the 10-inch line in blue goes out across southern Massachusetts to just north of Boston. So I've got Boston in a higher range. It's a tough call there because of the fact of where the low is going to be and how much warm air comes in. But that's my call at the moment. So what I did was I just reflexively went a little bit high. I kind of went with the same idea I had yesterday. The only thing I did is, like you said, Joe, wide ranges are justified because you just don't know The banding, the fact that there might be some convective thunder snow in there, and that's always going to throw off amounts. I'm not good enough to figure that out, so I just decided to sort of broad brush an area of a foot plus, and you can see that it covers most of Pennsylvania, northern New Jersey, basically along and north of the Turnpike, uh, in New York City, Nassau County, most of Nassau County. I've got a 10-inch line that cuts on a diagonal from southwest Suffolk toward northeast Suffolk, or north central Suffolk. It's very, very difficult. And all I will just say is, if even if again if you if so, those coastal areas east of New York City do wind up seeing a changeover to sleet and rain, it's going to come after a whole bunch of snowfalls. So it'll be very interesting to see just how much gets produced ahead of any kind of mixing or changeover. And I anticipate that it probably will only last for a handful of hours, much like it did in the December storm, and then it'll come back to snow by the time we get to Tuesday morning. And I think we could wind up with several inches on the backside of this, depending on how the upper low sets up. I think there's a pretty good bet that there could be at least several inches that fall during the day on Tuesday into Tuesday night in some areas. Now, for coastal and southern New Jersey, it's a bit tougher. The ocean water temperature is at 44, as I was told by Alan Casper this morning. So what I did was here, combining the front side, back side. You can see what I have for South Jersey, the 10-inch line running from northeastern Monmouth County to right to near Philadelphia, to Wilmington, Delaware, to just north of Baltimore and Washington. I've got 8 inches. If you draw a line from south of Toms River, uh, southwest across central Delaware to just south of Washington, D.C., and then so on and so on, 6 and 4. So remember, it's a two for you folks south of 195. This is a two-part event. And it also could be in inland areas in central Jersey in particular, where you lose it. It goes over to sleet and some rain, and then because of the way the development, you get it going back and forth between rain and snow for a number of hours late tonight and during the first part of tomorrow. Then it goes over to rain, and then it goes back to snow on the backside. So, Joe, it's so hard. It's just so hard to go back and forth with trying to figure out exact numbers, and this is the best that I can do, and I don't anticipate changing this very much at all. I'm just going to leave this alone. Whatever at this point, whatever happens, happens.
Well, Joe, what you have up there is basically what I had. The only reason why, as I said, in my map where I had 12 to 18, I said the 12 I thought was a lock. The only reason why I put the 18 is, and you mentioned it here in your dissertation about the uncertainties with snow banding and convection, that's my only reason. And they're going to be, no question about it, in that broad area, there are going to be places that are going to have more than 12. It's all dependent upon where the banding sets up. But you know what? I can't deal with that. I was interviewed last year by Westchester Magazine, and the guy who was asking me questions said, "What's the great white whale of meteorology or forecasting, in your opinion?" And I said that when we have big snowfalls, the big white whale, the great white whale, is trying to figure out where the heck these bands of heavy snow are, because there's always some place where you're calling for 12 inches, and there's always somebody who's going to say, "Well, you were calling for 12, but I got 19.7, and what happened?" And that's an example of banding. You don't know where those bands are going to set up, the localized bursts. I'm just crossing my fingers and hoping that up here, all I'm going to have to deal with when this is all over with is about a foot of snow. The last thing I want to see is a band of heavy snow that's going to dump, 16 or 18 or close to 20 inches. But that's certainly in the cards. We just simply don't know where or who's going to get it. But I think it was worth mentioning. That's my version of my CYA forecast.
Mary Schenkel, you say here it shows 12 inches for us, but on my app you say, I'm assuming you're talking about my app, you say 4 to 6. I updated my app this morning, unless I didn't hit the updated button to put the new forecast on there, but you never know. I but I think I did update it, and if not, when the show is over, I'll take a look and see if it's correct. But what you're seeing here should be also on my weather app. Okay, so Now, I'm going to switch to the Weather Service's digital forecast so we can take a look at some other areas, as I know we have folks watching from all over. So, in Virginia and North Carolina, be advised that this does not include what has already fallen because you've been snowing for a while here. So these would be additional snow amounts, and of course now with snow moving up into Washington D.C. and Baltimore and points northward, you're seeing some 6 to 8 inch amounts there. In southern Pennsylvania, anywhere between 8 and 14, I think, is a pretty good description of the range. Philadelphia 11, Wilmington 10, Trenton 15. You get the double-digit amounts in northeastern, eastern Pennsylvania, mainly from Route 78 north. A print of 18 at Allentown, 16 for Scranton, 18 for New York City, 13 for Islip, and then 5 for Bridgehampton, 3 for East Hampton, and then in Connecticut, generally west of 91, it's a foot plus. Generally east of 91, it's about 7 to 12 or 8 to 12. And you see the Weather Service giving downtown Boston 6, but just inland, it's a foot plus for northern Rhode Island. Upstate New York, Albany 13, Utica 7, Syracuse 8. So I-90, it looks like the borderline right now for the moderate snows to the north on the order of, say, 4 to 8 inches to heavier snows to the south on the order of a foot plus. Binghamton 13. And then, of course, you go to Western PA, you see amounts of 6 to 8. In Ohio, there's been a lot of snow overnight and from yesterday and overnight. So the numbers that you're seeing here, again, that's on top of whatever has fallen. And now, the map's now loading up. And of course, back out to parts of the Midwest, the backside of the dying primary, a coating to an inch or two, and that should just about do it. Okay, so let's roll, Joe. I'm going to bring up the NAM model so we could take a look at the FGen, and if you could explain to folks what that means, do you want the 700 millibar FGen or do you want the 850?
I usually use the 700. I'm used to it because that's what I used to use on the NCEP models.
Okay.
And so that pretty well tells the story in terms of forcing, in terms of dynamics, in terms of atmospheric energy. If you want to, look for areas where, or a region where you may find the snow is coming down at 1 to 2 or even 1 to 3 inches an hour, or maybe convection with thunder snows popping up, you look for the area of maximum omega on the FGen maps, and there's just one long, it looks like a
hang on, I'll bring it up there
like
now.
a frankfurter or
yeah,
or a sausage or something, a salmon or pinkish sausage of energy coming up, and it develops as this coastal storm tonight takes shape and intensifies and then pushes northward. And the models have it in various ways. The 12-kilometer NAM has,
which is what I have up now, and I
Right.
just brought it, by the way, Joe. It's at it's
look
at
at that, Joe. You can't even see the contours. It looks like one of those op art or
right.
moire patterns. Where
So
the
this is a clobbering of heavy snow that's probably going to occur between, say, 9 a.m. and 1 p.m.
Yeah, but look how long it stays over us. It's even beyond 1 p.m. It looks like until then it starts to finally begin to lift.
Right, and then it goes on up into southern New England.
Now, I don't know whether or not it's a matter of function of the 3-kilometer having a tighter grid, but on the 3-kilometer, the
which I'll bring up right
is
now.
not quite as widespread and as robust on the 3-kilometer NAM.
I've been paying close attention to this to this during storms. I find that interestingly enough, sometimes it goes nuts. Then on the next run, it backs off and maybe shifts it a little to someplace else, and then on the next run, it comes back to the way it was before. It seems like there's a little more volatility on this particular view than on maybe some of the other maps that concentrate on other parameters. But you've worked with this longer, so I'm
like I said, it doesn't look like, obviously, the contour lines are not as jammed together on the 3-kilometer, and that might be a function of the fact that the 3-kilometer has a tighter grid to it. If there's one thing I can say good about the 3 kilometer and the 12 kilometer NAM, and also the GFS, which in its own right is not as robust as either the 3 or 12 kilometer NAM models. But if there's one thing you can tie all three models together with, it's the timing. And the timing shows that the most significant area of energy, or omega, is going to be moving through from late morning through early afternoon. And that is when probably we're going to be seeing the most dramatic or dynamic amount of heavy snowfall, possible thunder snow. Let's not forget that the winds are going to be quite strong too. So if you had to press me against the wall and say, all right, when is the worst of this going to be? I'd have to say, based upon the position of the omega on the FGen maps for all three, and I think even the Canadian has FGen. I haven't had a
Oh,
chance
let's
to look
take a
at that.
look with the Canadian. Let's take a look at the Canadians and FGen, and then we could take a look, and then we could talk about the wind, because that is going to be a big deal along the coast, and coastal flooding is going to be a big issue too. So I think we need to, mention that. So here we go with the Canadian. Yeah, look, the Canadian really goes hog wild with the. It has some omega actually, also, Joe, into tomorrow morning in pockets
Right.
there, and then all of a sudden it just blows up across Long Island, northern New Jersey, and in northeast PA between Allentown and Scranton. It's that nice, very sharp looking east-west band that we see.
You know, it, Garo Vesta on the chat board says, I remember Joe Rayo said yesterday it's not possible for 1 to 3 inches. That seems a little high, but now he's updating it, which is good. Well, it's good because I'm sure you're a snow lover, Garo. But when I said that it didn't look like it was going to be possible for 1 to 3, it was only because, and actually I said that the day before on Friday, and I felt that it was just going to be simply a long duration event, and doing just a quick back of the envelope calculation. All right, maybe 24 hours worth of steady snow, 12 inches. That averages out to about a half an inch an hour. That's I said, well, it doesn't look like we're going to be getting any bursts. But now, seeing as how this system has become on all the models more intense, more wrapped up, closer to the coastline, and with all of this omega, which quite frankly, up until a day or two ago, they were keeping all of this to our south and to our east. Now we're interacting with it. So there's no question now. I mean, I've seen this on other storms over the years. When we get into, FGen activity like this, no question, it's going to be a ton of precip coming down in a very short interval of time. So you have to go with that. By the way, when we had Itzaia, Joe, back in July, I saw the FGen looking very much like this. We had this coming rolling through like a 40-ton Mack truck during, I think, noon and 3 o'clock that afternoon with Itzaia. And of course, we all remember what happened as a result of that. So Lord only knows what we're going to see with this. If this all comes to fruition tomorrow, we'll just have to play it by ear, prepare for the worst, and hope for the best.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, on the surface map for the Canadian, I'm this this potential for a changeover to sleet or rain along the immediate coast is such a tough call. And I'm looking at the Canadian, which brings snow in as fast as the other models, and overall faster from yesterday. And at 0Z on Monday evening, it's still in the dark blue snow over Long Island, northern New Jersey, eastern Pennsylvania, and into Connecticut, and then starts to pull it up. You see the rain comes in from the east. But again, at this point, most of you're still going to probably wind up with a foot just from the advection, if this is correct. And then, of course, during the day on Tuesday, you're still winding up with leftover precipitation. This is 1 a.m. Wednesday morning, Joe. It still has snow going on the backside.
Yeah.
It seems like it's even longer to get out of the way. I want to take a look at the GFS too on this, the new GFS, and then we have. I want to also maybe address the snow maps that come with these things, because at least now it's sort of, we're inside 24 hours, and I think they probably have a little more validity than they do in the long range, certainly. But here's the GFS at 1 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. I'm actually quite surprised at how cold it is in New Jersey, with that dark blue snow going well down into Ocean County and even still along the shore. At 7 p.m., It's still all snow, Long Island, southern Connecticut, certainly going to be all snow in northern New Jersey, regardless, the Hudson Valley, and so on. And then you get a little bit of a changeover to rain here and sleet along the coast around, this is 1 a.m. And then you start to go back to snow the next morning. The change back to snow, by the way, always winds up happening faster than models indicate in cases like this. And here, the GFS actually has some darker blue shading, Joe, going into Tuesday evening and Tuesday night until the low finally pulls away. So um, I really, there's a big part of me that can't wait for this whole thing to get underway just to see what exactly we're going to wind up with and who's going to get what, because the mystery is starting to kill me here.
Well, I'd like you to do. Can you go back to the NAM 3 kilometer?
Sure. Are you
I want
okay?
to
Are
just
you okay with this tight view, by the way?
yeah,
All
I'm
right,
fine.
that's fine.
I'm
So
fine.
let's go to the 3 kilometer NAM.
And I want you to pull up the precipitation, the frozen and liquid precip map.
Oh, the surface map with
Right,
the rate.
right.
Okay, which is what I
Uh,
have right now,
and
and it's
I want you to take a look at, let's say, tomorrow midday.
okay.
Now you talk about the deep shades of blue. Something pops up midday and afternoon on the 3 kilometer.
So
Just
this
keep
is
going.
15, 16,
Right. Just
17,
keep going.
18.
Now, I
What
saw,
what's that purple?
yeah, in the mid, yeah, right there. Now, what is that? Now, if you
That
look at,
might be, Joe. You know what that might be? That might be your thunderstorm. Because if you look on the scale, in
yes, that's
terms
what I was
of
about to say. Look, see on the scale.
on the scale, it's a precipitation rate. In that purple is at the top of the chart of that purple. That's 14 inches of snow an hour. Now, look, that's the rate. Now, the thunder, if that's thunder snow and that's the rate, that might last only about a handful of minutes, maybe 10 minutes. So yeah, you might be snowing at 14 inches an hour, but in order for you to get 14 inches of snow, that
It has
thunderstorm's
to
going to
keep
have to
going or
sit.
whatever.
Right,
Yeah,
it has to sit over you for 1 hour. It's not likely to do that.
yeah. And
At least
besides
you
that, I don't
hope
like
it's
the
not
fact it's
likely to do that.
I don't like it because that's like right over my house. I don't
Yes, it
need like
is.
I don't need that. I really do not need that. If you're listening up there, I like snow to a degree, but I don't need 14 inches an hour rate, even for 5 or 10 minutes.
Well, you have to record that on your seldom turned on telephone. So you can, if it does happen, because I think I would, many of us would love to see what a whiteout condition at that type of rate, if it were ever to happen. But that is good.
Oh,
And by the
uh,
way, you can still see it on the net. It's faint, but when you go to the 19Z at 2 o'clock, there's still just a little teensy weensy little area
yeah,
of purple there where it shows over the Hudson River. But
yeah,
that's insane. And of course, those dark blue snows. You're talking rates of maybe 3-4 inches an hour here, if the 3 kilometer NAM is correct, as they move on through. And by the way, notice back in Pennsylvania now, also you have the snow goes from this sort of solid area of coverage, and then the snows, you start to get some spaces in between. So that's partly the primary low, which is just about gone. There's still a slight evidence of it, but in West Virginia, but for the most part, the primary is done. And then also you start to see the impact of the upper low as it pulls the arc of the snow northwestward into upstate New York. It's amazing, Joe. This is another instance, and this happens so often. For those of you that are watching say if you're watching from central and northern New England and upstate New York, where you see these big storms that oftentimes show up in the mid-Atlantic states early in the guidance and never wind up. And it always shows that snow never getting much further north than the coast. And in fact, Joe, you and I a couple of days ago were still struggling with a few models that couldn't bring the snow up north of Poughkeepsie. Now you look at it, and look how the heavy snow goes all the way up into Maine eventually. So the character of these storms do tend to change over the course of days, but obviously in the long range they do. But here's an instance where even 2 days ago, the models were having a tough time, and uh, a few people were pointing out to me on the chat board that are in upstate New York how their forecast started out with just some snow showers, and now they're going for places are going for a foot plus or a foot and a half plus in areas around Binghamton and into the Catskills. So it's just it's interesting how models don't handle storms like this very well at all, and it's no wonder that forecasters are having problems with it.
Well, I want to, you asked me about sharing a screen. So I wanted to bring up something, a couple of things on the plumes.
Yeah, go for
So,
it.
so I'm going to bring it up right now, sharing the screen. There we go.
Let me
I
make
see
sure.
now.
Hold on, Joe. I got to make sure it's up there on the picture. So I got to do a little switch for you here. And yep, perfect. So you're up there. This is a perfect way of sharing the plumes. So go on.
I just wanted to show, this is the plume model, the SREF model, if you will, out of Stony Brook on Long Island. This is from the data that was inputted into it for 9Z earlier this morning. I suppose it's going to be changing to 12Z very soon, because it's been a few hours since we had the 12Z, since we were at 12Z. But in any case, what I want to point out to you, this is for New York City, LaGuardia, actually. This line that you see here, this is the 32-degree line. This is the freezing line. And take note that on the SREF model, that we cross over, New York City crosses over to above 32 sometime between 1 and 7 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. Let's say around, for the sake of argument, around 4 o'clock, it reaches 32. It then actually stays above 32 for a pretty good long time. It doesn't cross back down below 32 until, well, my goodness, until later on. What am I looking at here? This. Oh, wait a minute. This line. This is for mid afternoon tomorrow. This is for 4 o'clock in the afternoon tomorrow, thereabouts. Then it stays above freezing, presumably, through the rest of tomorrow, into tomorrow night, on into Tuesday, and doesn't really drop back below freezing until we get to the end of Tuesday or Tuesday evening. That's a pretty long time above the freezing.
Yeah, I think that's going to happen a lot sooner.
Well,
I
have you ever
honestly
looked at
do.
this now on the same? Again, this is LaGuardia now. Take a look at the precip type. The blue line indicates the type of precip for snow, but there's a light Kelly green that indicates rain. The rain and the snow probability comes very close together around 0Z tomorrow evening. So even though the temperatures presumably go above freezing, they don't. It's still more snow than anything else through the end of the day tomorrow, and then actually it goes below the rain probability goes below snow into the first part of tomorrow night. But then all of a sudden it crosses over after midnight tomorrow night, and then as you can see, from tomorrow night after midnight through the rest of tomorrow night, through much of the day on Tuesday, it's actually more rain than anything else, or at least the probability is greater than rain. So this gives you an example of what the models are struggling with, indicating that from later tomorrow into tomorrow night and Tuesday, there may be a bit more in the way of rain or maybe mixed precipitation in New York City, LaGuardia, as opposed to all snow. If I wanted to, if I just give you an example, let's see what happens in White Plains, which is again further north. This is White Plains now, and it shows you basically the same. I believe this is White Plains. Yeah, it is. And again, it shows you basically the same thing. They come close. The rain snow probabilities. The rain probabilities drop off a bit for a while tomorrow evening, and then bounce right back up after midnight until like it's more rain than snow. This is for lower Westchester and the Sound Shore area. And one more, just to show you what the story is. Let's go to Islip, or as it's labeled here, Brentwood. And
Right.
if I can just change that, I always have a problem getting a little finger to show up. Here you see, by far and away, the precipitation type changes over, apparently crosses over tomorrow at about 1 o'clock when all of this raging precip happens. All of a sudden in Islip, it crosses over from rain, from snow over to rain, and it stays more rain than snow all the way through until the end of the day on Tuesday. So uh, again, the further east you go and out across Long Island, there's a better chance that you're going to see a mix or change to liquid precipitation, or at least a mixed bag or a wintry mix of sleet, ice, and rain. That's why Long Island has lower amounts on both Joe's maps and my map, as opposed to places inland and to the north and west, which should remain mostly, if not all, snow and could get the big jump in terms of snowfall.
Right, and just as a reminder for those of you who remember the December situation, I mean, we wound up with about that one. We wound up with about 4 or 5 inches on the front side, changed over to sleet and then rain, and then in the middle of the night, after several hours of that, we had a plunge in temperatures that went from 33 to 28, 27 in about an hour, and it all changed back. Um, my experience has been usually the changeovers back happen a lot faster than what models show. They tend to catch up. One of the things I noticed, by the way, and this is a subtle difference, but it's important. At LaGuardia, I was looking at the Foose Joe from last night, and then this morning's, and I noticed that the boundary wind at LaGuardia on last night's run went to '04 and then very quickly backed to '02 and close to 360. And on this run, it goes to '04 uh, and stays '04 for an extra a period or two. Now it's a very subtle change. It's only 20 degrees, and actually in most winters, an '04 wind here is a perfectly reasonable northeast wind that wouldn't have any kind of impact with rain. But one of the big problems is our ocean water temperatures here, which normally at the end of January should be down around or certainly under 40, are running at about 44, 45. So maybe if this were a normal, if the ocean water temperatures were closer to normal, we wouldn't even be having this conversation probably wouldn't be having this conversation for the immediate coastal areas regarding a changeover. But that those few extra degrees in the water temperature, I think, are making a bit of a difference.
Absolutely. And in fact, these models that we use, Joe, all of them, the European, the GFS, the NAM, take note of the fact that we have we refer sometimes to MOS, model output statistics. What is built into these models is what the normal would be, as you said, for this time of the year, the latter part of January. Now, the fact that we have temperatures, the ocean temperatures are so much warmer than they should be, that is indicative of the fact that as we get closer to the storm event, these models are catching on by moving that storm over these mathematically induced numbers for the ocean. And the fact that these water temperatures are so much warmer, that's why the storm is moving closer to the coast. That's why with each run, they're picking up on the fact that, hey, this storm is going to be moving over unusually warm ocean water. And that's why the storm is getting stronger or more potent than what you would normally expect. As you said, if this were a normal winter, if we had water temperatures closer to the mid and upper 30s instead of low to mid 40s, I'm sure that the storm projections would be a little less robust in terms of intensification. But I think that warmer water, it's almost as if sometimes we talk about how a storm gets very intense when it passes over the warmer waters of the Gulf Stream. Well, it doesn't need to do that because the whole ocean is unseasonably warm now, and I think that's playing into
Yeah,
the
Atlantic Ocean
more
water
event.
temperatures are much above, like 4 or 5 degrees in some instances above normal. There's been this warm pool off the New Jersey coast and off the Long Island coast up into New England that's been there for months and months now. So yeah, that is definitely having a bit of an impact. I want to go. I want to just show the snowfall forecast maps for a reason. Normally, these are certainly not good forecast tools. In the long range, they're pretty much eye candy and fantasy for snow lovers. But we're kind of on top of this. And there's no magic to these maps. I mean, it's just basically whatever the models are generating in terms of precipitation amounts um, is being reflected on a 10-to-1 ratio. You can hand draw a map like this. If you get a rainfall forecast map and just hand draw off of there where the max precip is, you can pretty much draw a snow forecast map. There's no magic here. So there are some big numbers being spewed out by the GFS, Joe. in a max area oddly enough, in central Jersey, down toward just east of Philadelphia, and a small pocket in North Jersey. Uh, and yet, in spite of the coastal changeover to rain, with the GFS being also oddly enough a little colder, it has some pretty hefty amounts for areas even that get a changeover to rain. Like, for example, right there on the central New Jersey coast, it's printing a 21.8. It's printing a 14 and a little over 14 for Islip. So and I just kind of find it pretty interesting how the global models have been doing all sorts of strange things with this. I'll bring up the parallel GFS, or as I've been calling it lately, the perpendicular GFS. Um, but here too, the area of heavy snow is different, with the 2 feet amount numbers being spit out. Almost 20 inches for me on this, over 20 inches in Rockland County, um, and it's very difficult. I'm putting these up if only because of the fact that I want to get everybody at least a sense. This is difficult. Okay, this is not connect the dots and the old Venus coloring set when we were kids and used to color in the numbers in order to get the
Oh
picture to
God,
come out. Remember? I mean,
Venus, the color pencils. Oh
yes, the Venus color pencils. I mean, this is really very difficult stuff for us to sit back and absorb all of this information and then somehow come out with something that makes sense. And the fact is, we know going in that there's going to be busts here. Okay, let's make no mistake. There are going to be some areas, and because everybody's world rotates around them and not anywhere else, there are going to be some upside surprises here. I think there might be a few places that will have upside surprises that will grab some headlines. And there'll probably also be a few places that might wind up with some downside surprises, depending on how the low sets up. And by the way, one other thing, uh, the um, the models from the NAM in particular, was a shade warmer from the one we saw last night at 9 o'clock. The day run today was a shade warmer, not a lot, but enough to make a difference for some places. Who knows if that gets corrected again on the next run or the run after that. So understand that there is a subtlety here. Understand that for some places there's a kind of a very tenuous line of what might happen, and just remember that, okay? And enjoy it. By the way, take some time to make sure you enjoy all this and get your head out of the computer and go outside and enjoy this snowstorm. As Who knows if we're going to get another one.
I, you and you'll be the only one out there who'll understand this, Joe. But I said this to Renata last evening. I said to her, I said, "Oh, by the way, I got a phone call from Renee. She wants me in extra early on Monday morning."
Yeah, that's not happening. Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah,
yes.
no, we're not doing that. And we no longer do that, thankfully.
We no
Uh,
longer do that. We no longer have to do anything like that. But I mean, there's nothing worse, folks, than to see the snow pick up like this, or to know the storm is coming, and then suddenly get a phone call being told you got to be in now, or as
yes.
soon as you can. You don't even get a chance to enjoy it, because once you go in, a lot of these weathercasters, I'm making the assumption, the Lonnie Quinns and the Nick Gregory's and Lee Goldberg, they're basically inside, and they don't have a chance to look outside. Although a couple of them are doing it from their homes now, so maybe that's not quite true. But normally, you're at a TV station, you're stuck in front of your keyboard, you're stuck in front of your radar and computer model screen. You don't get a chance to, as Joe just mentioned, go out and look and get yourself enveloped in this and enjoy. Look for the lightning and thunder and everything, and that's what we can do now. We don't
I
have to.
know, and we're going to have fun.
Yes.
We don't have to sneak
Well,
outside with our suits on.
we'll have fun so long as our local power companies maintain our power. Please, please. It's no fun. That, in fact, after we finish this, Joe, we're going to go out into the garage, pull out the generator, check the generator, check the snow blower, get everything ready. We'll be prepared for tomorrow.
Real quick, I just want to run through a couple of things here. Surface map at the moment, the latest surface map plot, the lows in southern Indiana, the primary, you can see the wavy front. It's already occluded out. The isobars are starting to stretch down in Georgia and South Carolina, so it will probably be some kind of secondary that develops. Temperatures, Joe, in North Georgia are in the mid to upper 30s, and in South Georgia, they're in the low 60s.
Yep.
So you think there's an atmospheric headache developing? That's where it is.
Yep.
And we've got temperatures below freezing all the way up into North Carolina and into Virginia, where it is snowing in many locations. The winter storm warnings extend from much of western and northern North Carolina through much of Virginia, all the way up into southern New England, and there'll probably be some more that will go up for central and northern New England and upstate New York, parts of northern New England anyway. Here's your satellite at midday, a well defined circulation there with the shortwave trough that is moving eastward. WPC on their Precip Forecast Map. This was updated, by the way, this morning at 4 a.m. So I'm going to just make sure there's not a new one, because sometimes they sneak updates during the day, Joe. They have a 2.5 inches of liquid or more in northern New Jersey into southern Rockland and Orange counties. So they're looking, that's a hefty amount of liquid precip if that's all snow. So just bear that in mind. And it runs down the New Jersey coast, a general area of 1.75 to 2 inches of precip covering much of eastern Pennsylvania to southern New England out of all of this. And someone suggested this to me yesterday. Thank you so much for telling me about this, as I didn't I didn't realize that we could do this. So on the WPC probability map, what he suggested to do is, if you change it to, there's an option on this map, folks. If you put accumulation by percentile, and if you click on the option of the 50th percentile, it kind of gives you a rough idea of what WPC is forecasting in inches rather than by chance. So the dark blue, Joe, is the southern side of the dark blue is 6 inches, and the top side of the dark blue is 8 inches. The light blue, before it goes to purple, is 12. So this is, if you kind of want to just look at this, and this is, by the way, going through the entire event, which includes the backside. So this gives you kind of an idea how WPC is seeing this, and the purple is 18. That purple color there is 18, between 18 and 21. So yeah, the lightest blue is between 12 and 5. Wait, I'm sorry. I'm trying to make sure I'm looking at the right colors.
15.
I'm sorry, 12 and 15 in the light blue, 15 and 18 in that purplish shading. So this gives you an idea what WPC is thinking in terms of snowfall amounts. And you see the 1 foot area goes up the Hudson Valley. The 10-inch area goes into western Connecticut and down into central New Jersey. I would think that these amounts should be hit, given what we're looking at.
Yeah, on my map over northern New Jersey, I had that hatched area that with 20 inches with a question mark, and they have on their map they have that same area for the possibility of what, 15 to 18? Is that what that next? Yeah, 15
Yeah,
to 18.
15 to 18.
And they have that actually extending all the way back into northern and central sections of Pennsylvania, for God's sake. Whoa. That includes my in-laws. My father-in-law is going to get 15 to 18 if this is right.
Yeah, Christinapedia said she's disappointed because it's not my map. This is WPC. So she's well, I put from WPC's status on the edge of that 6 inch. I think they're too low for Long Island, frankly. And I've often found that they do tend, they're not, they're putting out a general forecast. It's very hard for them to be climate specific for any particular point. But I think we're going to be higher than that. I feel pretty confident. Let's since we're at the end, getting close to the end of the show, Mr. Rayo, why don't we just review what you have for snowfall forecast maps, and what whoa, I got really zoomed in there for you. So here's Joe Rayo's forecast map. So just give a maybe quick summary about what you're doing.
Oh, Okay, it just got big again. So I saw what you were talking about. So the basically what I'm going with is the idea that for you folks who live to the east of the Hudson Valley and especially across from New York City and across Long Island, the idea that there's going to be some sleet and rain changeover tomorrow afternoon and evening, based in part on the NAM-FUS and also on the plumes forecast that there's going to be some mixing that would hold down accumulations out here. But elsewhere in this big zone that you see here, what we have is 12 to 18. As I said, the lower end of the scale, the 12 inches, I think is a lock for everyone in this zone. I only put 18 there to account or try to account for localized banding, possible convection, thunder snows, and a sudden outburst of heavier precipitation. The 20-inch area, well, that's based partially on topographic locations, higher elevations here in northern New Jersey and a small sliver of Orange County here. Um, that again is questionable. That again is based upon the possibility of convection and banding. But I think, Joe, this whole area where you see 12 to 18, everybody in that area should get at least 12, maybe more, again, depending upon banding. And elsewhere, further east, again, depending upon how much mixing and how far away you are from the storm track, maybe something like 6 to 12, but a big snowfall, no question about that.
All right, so now here's my map. I just kind of broad brushed a foot plus for a rather large area. I'm not really good at picking topside amounts, but certainly I could see amounts of 18 inches plus. Northeast parts of northern New Jersey into the Hudson Valley, west of the Hudson. There's a lot of weird things happening sometimes with the northeast winds that usually upslope west of the Hudson, and you get some pretty crazy snowfall numbers up in parts of Orange and Rockland County out of something like this. And on Long Island, of course, for me, where I am, it's always a real struggle to figure things out. And I've been surprised in both directions with systems like this, where you wind up changing too faster than you think, and you wind up changing slower than you think, and it impacts amounts. But you get the general idea. Philip Neary, Joe, really quick, because also we didn't address this, and I want to address the wind and the coastal flooding issues for tomorrow and Tuesday. But Philip Neary asks a very good question. He says, "What do you think the quote I didn't see that happening concept will be for this storm?"
Oh, sure. Look what happened last month with Binghamton. Who the heck was going to say 40 inches? I mean, in this case, so volatile. I mean, who's to say? I'm not going to say there's going to be another spot here on the map that's going to get 40 inches, but we're going to have a story to tell. I think Tuesday evening or Wednesday as to what happened and why didn't we see that and why didn't we mention that or what the heck happened or whatever. And there may even be some places that we are anticipating heavy amounts of snow where it didn't get or fall quite as heavily. You don't know. You can never tell. And that's what I said again when I mentioned at the onset of our conversation, Joe, or our discussion today, the great white whale. I mean, that of meteorology and storms like this, you can never say anything precise about these kind of storms because there's going to be a wide variation, a wide variety. We're just going to have to sit, watch, maybe adjust accordingly. I'm hoping I don't have to make any more adjustments. I really
Yeah,
don't want
no,
to have
I
to.
don't want to either. I'm done for I'm
I'm
done for
done.
today. I'm done
Yeah.
for. I'm not changing a thing. I'm at the point now. I'll look at the models briefly. I just want it to start so that I can enjoy it. I always, like as I said, if you're a weather geek, make sure you enjoy it and don't watch the storm on the computer for God's sake. So here's the wind issue for tomorrow. Into Tuesday, and I just pulled up the 5 p.m. wind gust map for tomorrow evening, and they're showing a lot of areas, particularly in the coast and along the immediate coast, gusting to 40 to 50 miles an hour, and that is due to the very, very tight gradient that is going to be present. The Weather Service calling for minor. I'm sorry, the Weather Service calling for moderate to potentially major coastal flooding out of this in some areas on the south shore of Long Island. So I didn't specifically look at what they were calling for on the Jersey Shore with their coastal flood warning, but I have to think that they at least certainly have a mention of moderate coastal flooding. I don't know if they mentioned major coastal flooding in some places. But look at
Well, we're
some
only
of the
3 days past. We're only 3 days past the full moon, and as I mentioned yesterday, there's it tends not to. The highest tides don't coincide with the full moon. There's a lag of about 1 to 2 days, depending upon where you are, what your topography is. So many places may have had their highest tide, the absolute highest tide, with this full moon yesterday. So that means we're only now coming down off the top of the cliff, so to speak. So there's still significant tidal issues thanks to the full moon. And again, this couldn't happen at a worse time. Tomorrow, again, the peak of the storm, still enough so that it would have been a lot better if this had been happening around the time of a first or last quarter moon with the so-called neap tides or no tide effect. But it's coming right after a full moon, so there will be some tidal problems with this tomorrow.
I want to give special thanks here to John Striel, Bill Fisher, the chairman, Leon Probitsky twice, and Joe Abia hitting super chat today. Thank you so much, Joe, and I really do appreciate it greatly. Also, the 268 people that hit the like button today. Thank you so very much for showing how much you like the Joe and Joe Weather Show, and I hope you've subscribed to my YouTube channel. And this way you'll get notifications every time we come on to do a live stream, which will not be again today. I will tell you that much. They're not doing another show today.
Right.
Uh,
Mary Schenkel, by the way, Joe, this may take a load off your mind or whatever, said, I just checked Joe's app. He does, and she puts that in uppercase, he does have me in the 12-inch range, but the NWS forecast has me in the 4 to 6. We'll see who's more accurate tomorrow evening.
Well, and you know what? I could look, and I will just say this: I could certainly make a case for either side. Uh, we'll know in hindsight, but yeah, and nailing that geographic position, as you know, Mr. Rayo, nailing the geographic position of exactly who gets less and who gets more is almost impossible, and almost always I love how people will look at a map and just take it absolutely literally and say that, okay, I live on this line, what do I get? Or if you're off by a handful of miles and you just happen to catch the person that is in that little zone. There is room for error here. These lines, when we draw these snowfall forecast maps, these lines are approximations. They're not gospel, okay?
Right.
And you have to have at least a certain amount of give the forecaster a little bit of a break here and a certain amount of leeway that it's going to be off. They're all going to be off. No one gets it right. And when you look back in the plots and you plot it up against the snowfall forecast maps that the models generated, they don't get it right. So I think we have some people need to sort of adjust their expectations. And I'll just say this: you are not entitled to perfection. I'm sorry, we do the best we can, but and that's all we can do. We're not going to, if your expectation is that I'm going to give you an exact number as far as how much snow is going to fall, why is it that important? I don't understand why it's that important that to the fraction of an inch how much snow you're going to get. I don't understand it. If somebody can explain it to me, I'd be more than happy to sit there and have that conversation.
Well, there's some people out there who have their own websites or on Facebook who are proclaiming this morning, you see, I was calling for this a week ago or 5 days ago, or whatever, and pointing to some folks like you and me, for example, who started out, rather with significant totals, but have gradually climbed up the scale until where we are right now, where we pretty much all are calling for basically the same thing. And to that, I say, if you did call for this a week ago and you did say that we were going to get 12 to 18, congratulations, you're a better forecaster than I am. I don't go that way. I take everything one step at a time, and because if you call for 12 to 18 like 5 days in advance, and then all of a sudden something happens and it drops by, let's say, one half, where does that leave you? That doesn't make you look good. I prefer to gradually go up the scale as opposed to
All right.
starting right off the bat and
Well,
saying this is going to be it. That's
well, I always say, for people who take it as an opportunity to lash out to weather people when the forecast comes out different than what was presented. I usually respond by saying, I'm so terribly sorry that you didn't get the tragedy you were hoping for. So that's because that's almost what they sound like. You forecasted 2 feet, we only got a foot and a half, and then they call you in some sort of name. So well, I'm sorry you didn't. I didn't. Sorry you didn't get your extra 6 inches. And you can sort of take that however you'd like.
Isn't it amazing? Isn't it amazing though, Joe? Last week at this time, last Sunday, we were saying, well, we've got a really exciting, potentially exciting week coming up because we had that one storm on Tuesday, which dropped a few inches, and the Thursday storm, which really looked robust and very potent, but completely missed us, but made us, talk. Did we say anything last week about what's coming our way tonight, tomorrow? It
Well, we
was
didn't have to because we were focusing on what was in front of us, which is what you and I always do. If we
right.
didn't have those first two systems, our attention would have gravitated to this. But instead, we were looking at the system early next week, which we never thought was going to be a big deal anyway. And when the second one went to the south, we tried to help our viewers that are in Virginia and North Carolina. And I was in northern Georgia, so I got some snow out of that. Not much, but I got at least a nice cheap thrill coating. And uh, but driving back home on Friday, I drove through the snow that fell in the mountains up I-81, and it was a beautiful drive, and they got what they were supposed to get. Yeah, we didn't have to go to this one. And by the way, you just Smadamat on. I didn't notice if Smadamat is on the board because I just want to acknowledge that just like the December storm was a fluke, I'm guessing that this one's also a fluke. That it's snowing at the end of January and beginning of February is a fluke event in the Northeast and in the Mid-Atlantic states. So I just want to acknowledge that in case Smadamat is watching. And
Well, we've been.
I'm never gonna let that person live that statement down. Just so you know. And also a big thank you to all the Fun Family channel with Aiden and Scarlett hitting super chat. Thank you very much. Patiently waiting for school to call. We trust our Joes. Thank you so much for that. Really do appreciate it.
Joe, we have 305 likes today. That's
Oh,
so. Thank you
lovely. How
so
many
much.
dislikes?
6.
Six. Okay, good. The trolls are, um, and that's another thing. By the way, you young folks that are watching, and I'm somebody that really has always encouraged young people that are into weather, especially these days where it's so easy to kind of develop your own broadcast pulpit, so to speak. And I have also uh, helped and shared stuff of young folks. So, to kind of come on this channel and try to put your links up on the chat board without even asking me is it kind of shows how badly you've been brought up. So you might want to go back to your mommy and daddy and tell them that I said that that you were badly brought up, and also it's sort of less inclined for me to do something if you ever have the need. Joe, you reminded me of the story you told about the person who, lambasted you in a letter when they left your company and then had the audacity to ask you
Oh,
for a
yeah.
recommendation. That's kind of how I feel about this. If you're going to come on here just to stick your YouTube link on and not even speak to me or ask me or talk to me, yeah, it's really rude. And you're going to get you can't the link won't post anyway. Nobody sees it. So you're wasting your time. And again, it just sort of shows you kind of reflecting how your parents brought you up, and that's I don't think that they would appreciate that. So just a word to the wise, okay? And
And you realize the one thing we haven't mentioned at all
what is
is
Sal
that,
Blandino?
no, not Sal Blandino. I'm talking about Puxatony Phil. Groundhog Day on Tuesday is always kind of a noteworthy day for um, weather forecasters or whatever, and they always ask, well, what do you think about the groundhog's prediction or whatever? You know what? I have a funny feeling. Well, first of all, I think that in the New York area, we may not have the groundhog coming out on Tuesday morning
Why
to
should
see a
he? Why
shadow.
would he bother?
Well, who's going to be able to see it with all that snow and slop out there?
Yeah,
And the same
exactly.
holds true for Puxatony, Pennsylvania. They may find a problem in just getting the darn uh, you know Groundhog to come out on Tuesday morning.
Big hello to
Um,
Silvio Balzano, by the way, on the chat board. Nice to see you, Silvio, and I'll let my brother know you said hi. Uh, there was something else. I just had it on my mind that I want. Oh, I sent it to you. You didn't say anything. The chairman, Scott Briller, sent me, and I haven't checked. I check from time to time, but I haven't checked in weeks, because when you're busy doing all the stuff you're doing with shows and podcasts and website posts and your subscription platform and everything else, I forgot to do this. But we Scott sent me the a link to Listen Notes, which is kind of like the Billboard charts of podcasts, Joe.
okay.
And the Joe and Joe Weather Show is now, and to quote the sort of the background music from the old American Top 40 Casey's Kasem show, in the Earth Science category, this is what you hear. Number 9. We
Hey, that's great.
we are the
That's
ninth
great.
most popular Earth Science show in the podcast world.
We're
So
now within the
yeah,
top 10. Moving up from number 12 last week, here's Joe and Joe with You're Gonna Get Clobbered with Lots of Snow.
yes, exactly. Um, so that's a proud moment for us. I appreciate. Thank you so much.
Oh, fantastic.
Those of you who listen to the show via podcasts on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all the podcast homes. And of course, a big thanks to everybody here taking time out of your busy day to watch the Joe and Joe Weather Show. So it is very much appreciated. We love how it's grown, and we want to keep growing it. And that's
Well,
what our
by the way,
intention is
Joe,
going to be.
I also forgot to mention next Friday, February 5th. You know what that is?
No, what is Friday, February 5th?
National Weather Person's Day.
Oh, yes, yes, exactly.
There you
So
go.
we'll have to see if we're both still around by the end of the week and
That's right.
not knocked out by all of this. Jason Schaefer, home to a new podcaster, meteorologist Jason Schaefer. He's got his podcast that you can find on Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple, and so on. Jason, put your podcast name up on the chat board. I don't think you're not going to be able to post the link, but put the podcast home that it's on, and I'll try and get a link up there for you.
Adam
But
Lowe.
thank you for
Adam
hitting
Lowe
super
says,
chat, by the way.
thank you. And Adam Lowe says that you're saying, Joe, you are the guru. You predicted this storm back in December by saying New York City is going to get another double-digit snowfall in February. I'm not the guru. I just looked at the numbers. Statistically speaking, at Central Park, 7.5 inches or more snow in the month of December. 9 times out of 9, we have had, following that snowy December, a winter with 40 or more inches of snow. But what also was interesting is that we had a very warm November, and 75% of the time, Joe, we usually end up with below normal numbers for the winter when we have a very warm November for snowfall. But I also said in those cases, the 25% where we did go above normal with a warm November, in order for that to happen, you had to have a big blast, a big snowfall. And indeed, if this isn't a big snowfall to help push us up toward that 40-inch mark, I don't know what is. It certainly looks like um, those numbers jiving and working out, uh, and that's really all it is. Is just looking back at the Central Park numbers, and indeed, it looks like it's all going to pan out for us this year. And when we weren't getting any snow in January, I just said, look, it looks like it could be a backloaded winter. Let's wait till see what February and March is going to bring. Well, we're going to only be a day into February, and we've already seen one big blow, and I'm sure we'll have a couple of more before this winter is over.
My buddy Michael Marino down in Ocean County, Joe, he just said that the first flakes have started there. And okay, this is perfect. Let me just share Jason's um, podcast link to everybody. Just give me a moment here to bring it up. But here is
The JC Weather Podcast.
okay. That's what I was looking for. So let me get I got the link here.
It's on Anchor.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's on Anchor and also on Spotify, so you could check around. Jason, I hope you got you set up all those different connections, those feeds to Apple and Google Podcasts and everything else. If you haven't on Anchor, you need to do that. Okay, just letting you know. And Jason's link is now up there on the chat board to his podcast. So anyhow, Jason was when I was working at Pix. I he produced from time to time, and we worked together over the years. Good kid, right, Jace? Good kid. So there you go. All right, so we're all done. It's coming up on 12:15. I want to just like relax for a little while this afternoon. Maybe watch some Turner Classic Movies before the snow comes up.
Now, but one question, Joe. Now, tomorrow, are we just going to go on at 7:30, or are we going to do some late breaking in the midst of all of the mayhem midday tomorrow?
I'll tell you what. Why don't I'm wide open to whatever you want to do. So if you think you feel like doing something in the morning, you want to go on in the morning, we can do that. Just shoot me a message and I can have us on the air up in within 30 minutes.
Okay.
All right. So just bear that in mind, folks. For tomorrow, we'll keep it open, depending on the weather developments, and if we don't do something early, we will more than likely then do something for our regular time, which is 7:30 Eastern time. And in the meantime, if you are prepping, a reminder, our sponsor, Omni True Value Hardware of West Babylon, has everything you need to get you through this winter storm that we're about to get hit with. 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, Long Island's largest rock salt source, and they supply much of the tri-state area, whether you are an individual or you are a crew or you have a company that handles snow removal. Head over to Omni True Value. Tell them Joe Cioffi sent you. 631 756 1125 is the telephone number. The website, omnitruevalue.com. And usually during snowstorms, they open early in the morning, like 2 or 3 a.m. So everybody can come get their stuff and take care of what needs to be taken care of. And being this is a long duration event, Joe, there's probably going to be a number of rounds of cleanups that are going to have to be done. First from the advection, and then from the backside. So let's see. Let's enjoy ourselves this afternoon.
Yes, sir. We're going to prepare for the worst, hope for the best, and hope all of you out there take it easy, and we'll see how things go over the next couple of days.
One last super chat acknowledgement from Ken DPW in New Jersey, hitting super chat. Thank you so much, Ken, and we'll see you tomorrow. Keep tuned to your notification if we decide to come on an earlier time of the day, and of course my Patreon. Those of you on my weather platform on Patreon, you'll get your notification from me because I always post the link up and the time of the live stream. So just bear that in mind. All right, everybody, have a great day. We'll see you. Hopefully we'll see you tomorrow.
We'll see you.
Okay.